Oh, there's a lot in there, bro.
That was a lot. The
No,
ramble.
but that's great. This is why the people show up to these calls to get the secrets, right? Hello, everybody. Grady Paulson here, Family First Live America. Beyond excited to have three-time, if I had a third hand, I'd put it up, a three-time Hall of Fame producer, Calvin Wright, elite IUL producer, and as well as he's built his business of the people that he's reached out to, coached, helped learn how to sell insurance, and put them in a position where they have built an agency that now he has had the ability to partner with integrity. So Calvin, as humble as they come, as skilled as they come, but I'm excited for you guys all to learn from him. Drop a CW in the chat below to show Calvin Wright some love. He's out in Austin, Texas right now, probably trying to stay warm. What's the temperature there in Austin right now?
Today it was not bad. It was like 50 something right now, high of 73. So we're doing good today.
Oh, Jesus. It was 29 this morning in Arizona. I think we're switching places. It's getting cold, but how you doing, bro?
Dude, I'm great. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you too, man. I've been seeing you around. I know you and Zach work hand in hand, and I love Zach dearly. So I'm it was a very natural response when we met each other in Destin. So shout out Brady, our boy who's out in Destin right now. But to connect and we had a great time on that trip, and to see you continue to sell. I think you knocked down 12 families yesterday at 8 o'clock, and just to see you keep rolling. And that's what's so fun about this business. It's like, how good can I get? And it's not so much like self-feeding, but it's like, how well can I serve people, right? What challenges do they have? What doubts do they have? How can I educate them, overcome their challenges that maybe they have mentally, and to become someone that's truly going to benefit their family? So I know you believe the same way, and it's fun to see. But I'd love if you maybe share some background, how you got to insurance, how you got to where you are, and who Calvin Wright is.
Yeah, so appreciate you guys for having me. A little quick backstory on myself. I joined the military at 18. So right out of high school, straight into the military, was like jumping out of airplanes, doing all like that, like gung-ho type stuff, like zero sales experience, mostly just leadership experience. So I learned very quickly, if you're not smart, you better be strong. So that was my mentality going into the Army, because I was like, well, I didn't do that good in school, but I know I can follow instructions very well. So if I got really good at just listening to what other people were telling me to do and just replicate it, I would by default become successful in the military, which ended up really just happening. I just picked some guys I liked, did exactly what they told me to do, got really good, at shooting, physical fitness, that kind of stuff, which I needed to be in my career field. And that kind of what propelled me forward. And I did 7 years in the military. And then it was kind of like in a weird transition where I was like, do I want to keep doing this, making like minimum wage, or do I want to like find a career field where I can make something happen for my family? And that was like a big turning point for me. So that was my time to exit the military. And I didn't go into Family First Life right away. I've known Zach since I was like 13 years old, and I just never understood that. So I took a job at like a corporate production facility, and I was like, oh, this is going to be easy. I'm going to get out of the Army. I'm going to make all this money. I'm going to be 9 to 5. And that was complete a fairy tale in my head. That never happened. I went to this company. I was working second shift, getting off at like midnight every night. And I was thinking to myself, I should have just stayed in. This is not what anybody told me it would be like. And so my wife at the time, girlfriend then, was like, I'll follow you wherever you want to go. Like, I'll figure it out. I'll get a job. And so we got to Minnesota, and we're in this tiny town, like maybe 10,000 people. And she's like sifting through jobs online. She's like, I could be an insurance agent. It says that it make a bunch of money. And I was like, I know somebody in insurance. And so I called Zach, and he like kind of like filled me in and explained how everything worked. And I was like, well, I'm going to do it. Don't worry about you. I'm going to do it. And so I was like, I only have a total of 14 paid time off days. I have to figure it out in this amount of time, or else I can't just like, that's all the, like, this is my income. I can't just like turn it off. So I didn't have any money saved up at the time. So I planned it out where I did my licensing in 7 days, and then I took 2 weeks of PTO, and then I went out into the field. And that was when everything was kind of was all in home. And so I was just banging the streets and calling and slipping
Where were
all
you
over the
running?
place in
We're
snow.
about in Minnesota. Where were you running?
Yeah, I was in southern Minnesota in this small town called Austin, Minnesota.
Okay.
It was middle of nowhere. And so then I was driving around and I was like, well, I have 2 weeks to figure this out. And so I helped 16 families that first 2 weeks. And then I called Zach and I was like, hey, what do I do? I've never quit a job before. I've never quit anything actually. And he's like, just tell me you're not going back. And I was like, well, don't I have to put my 2 weeks in? And he's like, you just helped 16 families in 2 weeks and you make, less than 60K a year right now. What is that? There's no sense that it makes no sense like financially. And I was like, well, that's a pretty good point. So I went in there and I was like, hey, I'm not coming back. And they're like, where's your 2 weeks? And I was like, today. And then we threw everything in the U-Haul and we moved back to Texas like within a week. I broke the lease and I was like, we're out. I'm out of here.
Bro, crazy. So have you been in Texas since then?
Yeah. Like literally within 3 weeks of starting NFL, I was like, I'm out. I'm gone. So
Changed your life that fast?
it was quick. It was quick.
And
So that's what
that was 3 years ago.
that was. Yeah, that was March time 2021.
Awesome.
Not even coming up on 3 years.
That's awesome. Incredible.
Yeah.
So you just, I mean, you saw it, you made it happen. You learned the word tracks and you just, you get some doors shut in your face, you get some no sales and you go, okay, well, I'm going to work towards the next one. I mean, I don't, that anything you were listening to at the time, anything like, I mean, like any early on rough experiences, just so people don't go, oh, this guy, the 16.
That like it sounds like a crazy one like wonder story, but like during that 2 week period, I don't ever talk about it much because I find it a little bit embarrassing. But I got actually like super sick and I had a kidney stone and it put me out for like 3 days. And I had to call Zach. I was like, dude, I'm in the ambulance right now, going to the hospital. Like I got this massive kidney stone. Like I promise I'm not quitting. I did not think this would ever happen. And they gave me a bunch of medicine. And I literally hit the phones like a day or two after being in the hospital. And I went straight back out to it. And I was like something's trying to stop me here, but I'm going to figure it out. And we'll get it. It just gave me a little bit more determination. It's like, you have to figure this out because when you get on Zoom, like in the beginning, I was kind of isolated because there was no office near me. There was like nobody near me. So I didn't have and all I knew was Zach. And so he starts introducing me to Easton and Jake and all these other people. And I was like, well, I've never really just called random people to ask for help. So they're like, hey, come on, get in our Zoom, get in our Zoom. And I just would get in there and then everybody's, scared in the beginning where they're like, hey, come off mute when you're calling. And I'm like, I'm going to sound like an idiot. And so you have to work up some courage to do that. And also in the beginning, like brand new, I obviously didn't have a ton of money. So I bought very cheap leads in the beginning. I had time right then. So I was buying like 1 to 3 month old leads. And I was getting my teeth kicked in. Like I was making 400, 500 dials a day, maybe booking like 4 or 5 appointments, but I would show up to every one of those appointments, no matter how many was on the schedule. And then I would figure out who's close and I would door knock and I figured it out, but I didn't have a backup plan. And I think that's the best way to figure this out is going in there, knowing not having a backup plan, because then you have no excuses on why you couldn't make it or couldn't have done it. So that was my mindset going into it, is like no backup.
Awesome, man. One of the things I learned about that, I think it's Columbus burned the ships, right? I mean, it's a lot of the different analogies, but when you're working old leads too, you got to remember too, most of the new leads weren't worked by that good of agents. Just because people bought new leads doesn't mean they worked them, which is why age leads have such a value. And I love to hear your success and, you pushing through and making it happen, because that's where you got to be is, this thing is far more mental than anything physical that you experienced in the previous 7 years of your life, right? It's like, this client just told me to go blank myself. This one's not answering. This one texts me back, who dis? You're just dealing with all kinds of stuff. And you're like, dude, is this what I really want to be doing? But then you get one that's like, hey, what took you so long to call? And you're like, there you go. Makes it all worth it. So, okay.
Yeah, I love that.
You moved to Texas, fast forward. Now we are Calvin Wright, IUL. The staff really, they put extraordinaire on the image, and I'd like to. I figured we'd leave it. How did that happen? So you're selling, I'm sure, age mortgage or age final expense. Fast forward, time, your business progresses, and now you're rocking IULs. Talk about that.
So what happened on that transition was not planned at all. So I was driving from Austin to San Antonio every single day, like hour and a half drive there, hour and a half back, in home when I got to Texas, right? And I was working those and only internet leads, only age internet leads.
Okay.
Well, what happened was everyone started going virtual, and my amount of appointments started decreasing because they were already like buying insurance before I could get to their house. And I was like, well, that's not good. I need to like get in front of these people quicker. Like, what do I do? And so I always call Zach because I'm like, well, he's very successful and he's mentored by tons of successful people and has a really like great network. So I'm just going to listen to what he says and then I'm going to give it a go. So the plan going into that transition was I'm going to do virtual sales for 30 days. And if I can't figure out virtual sales, I have to go back to the field. That's my drop dead. That's my goal. And so in the beginning, I was like, I'm only calling. I never texted a lead before for like the first couple of years I was here. Never texted a lead, and so I'm sitting at my in the kitchen at that time. I was just sitting there and I was like, well, how am I going to get a hold of all? I need a little bit more leads because I need to expand my distance of who I'm calling. How am I going to get a hold of all these people in one day? So we came up with a plan where we're just going to start text blasting all of these leads, like a link to book on my calendar, and just know that like 50% of them aren't going to show up in the beginning, and we'll refine the process as it comes through, but at least I'm talking to more people. And so that's what we did in the beginning, where we're blasting out a bunch of texts, we're getting people to book on the calendar, and then and I was just learning virtual sales. I was getting smoked. I was barely closing anybody. I think production like 40, I went from like 40 to like 40 families to like 15 or 19, like by half. And so I started freaking out.
You're at home, you didn't have to drive to San Antonio.
And I was sitting there like in sweatpants. I was like, this is like, it's not that bad, but I'm gonna figure it out, but I'm pretty comfortable right now. So I need to figure out how to get a little more uncomfortable. And so like we started testing a bunch of different leads, and like I was just testing all these different lead vendors, and I was just kind of like in a scramble trying to figure everything out. And this one of these guys on our team introduced us to Ringy or just any other type of CRM where it like auto does all this stuff, which I never used before. And so we figured that out, and then we started introducing like IUL leads in there, and the premiums were like massive. They were like my average. You heard of what Victor said. You have to increase 3 things in your business to grow by 33%, either AP, number of clients, or number of agents. And when he said that back, it registered really well with me, but that's what was happening at that time. The AP was going up like crazy. And so I started to, I didn't need as many appointments to be successful because the average was going up. And so I was like, well, I don't want to like just decrease in the amount of work I'm doing. So let's just get a little bit more leads, like increase the lead flow, maybe do 100 to 150 of those IUL leads a week. And then let's see where that lands me. And then it just starts filling up. And I didn't know exactly what I was doing in the beginning because there was no boot camp. It was like, hey, call Juan or call this guy or call this guy. And like, I ended up just calling the carrier reps, and I was like, can you explain this to me? Because I don't know what the heck I'm looking at here. And so I figured out, did a little bit of training, kind of like got my feet wet a little bit. And then we just started getting in front of clients. And I was trying to do it all over the phone in the beginning. And then I was like kind of getting hung up after I was explaining it, because I think I was like over explaining it or just doing it really poorly. And I was losing people. And so what I was like, I'm going to make every single person get on Zoom with me. And if they can't get on Zoom, then they're not serious about doing this. Because if I'm going to be spending money, if I was a client, I would want to see how it works. There's a bunch of stuff going on. So I'm like, I'm going to use that mentality. And so what I used to do was I was like, hey, it's Calvin. I'm giving you a call for the IUL appointment. I'm just letting you know, I'm just reaching out to you for our appointment today. Anyways, my job is just to go through and explain how the illustration works and kind of go through the numbers and show you everything. It's way easier for me to show you this visually because I don't know about you. I don't think you can remember a bunch of random numbers I'm about to spit out. So I just sent you a Zoom link. Can you make sure you can click on that for me real quick? And they'll be like, yeah, okay. And then boom, I'm like assumptive. I'm in the Zoom, like within 3 minutes, we're in the Zoom. And then it gives me a lot of time because then I'm back in my comfortable place of being in home, and it's just the same.
And they see you, they see your smile, they see your passion, they see you don't, you're not sitting in a dark basement with a, dirty sock on the shelf behind you. Like you're like, that's, which is all part of it, right? I'd grow up to the house with a polo and slacks, and some people go in jeans, but whatever, you're showing up, you're presenting yourself, they're buying you as much as they're buying the product, right? And you can't convey that as well just over the phone. I mean, there's a lot of people that just crush it over the phone, but for me and you, apparently we like being in person ish. So, okay. Oh, there's a lot in there, bro.
That was a lot. That's the ramble.
No, but that's great. This is why the people show up to these calls, to get the secrets, right? So you went from you're generating leads, you're sending texts. What about, so if you buy 100 leads, you're sending, hey, John, this is Calvin following up about your recent request for learning more about tax-free retirement income or index universal life policies. My job is to cover the information with you. Here's a link to my calendar. Please book at your convenience. I'll be happy to, facilitate. I mean, I just spit that out. Was it something like that?
Yeah, something pretty close and similar. I'm a big fan of just asking a bunch of curious questions. So it's like, hey, Grady, it's Calvin. I got your request for the IUL. Were you more interested in tax-free retirement, protection, or infinite banking? ? Book your 5-minute consultant here at this link. And then they click on, and then attach that first text. It's going to have a picture of my face, and it's going to say, Calvin Wright, IUL expert, personal cell phone numbers here, website, like all this, just junk, like stuff. And it's going to build credibility right away. And so they see my face, they see the picture, they see the question. Either they'll reply back simply just like with what they're looking for, or they'll just book on the link. It'll take them, or they'll click on the link. It'll take them to a landing page, and the landing page will have my picture again. And then I'll ask them a couple more questions. I'll be like, who's your beneficiary? What notes do you have for me? Select the time. So that way I can get even more information. So when I call them, I'm building a case right away. And then you can
know their name. Oh, you want to protect Betty, right?
Yeah, you're just gathering more juice. So I really liked, that was not a thing in the beginning. We were just testing random stuff, and that ended up just hitting the mark. And if they're like, a lot of times they just don't book off the first text. So the next day, like we're doing a series of like 7 to 10 drips, but they're not all at 8 a.m. They're not all at noon. They're not all at 8 p.m. We're scattering the different times out, which I think is very important and missed a lot, because you get a lot of people that work second shift, midday shift, all these different shifts or different times, and you're hitting them whenever, like, maybe the most convenient time for them is. They're like, I don't have time to look at this right now, delete, and then it hits them again at a different time, and they're like, shoot, I have a couple seconds to read this. And then the next couple of texts are like, hey, you didn't list a beneficiary on it. Who's that going to be? Or, hey, we're like, just more like random questions about like trying to get them to re-engage with you. It's not just like, book on my calendar now, blah, blah, blah. It's like question, calendar link, question, calendar link.
It's awesome, man. That's awesome. So you just, because the reality though too is, guys, these are busier people, right? If they're looking at IULs and have any interest in tax retirement income or infinite banking, they have a job. They probably might have a job, and then if they've got dependents, their spouse may have a job, they're working, they're busy people, and they're looking for something that then fits in to their schedule, which is when you text them at different times. And I've never heard anyone say that before, right? I mean, it makes sense, right? But no one's ever shared like, hey, try texting at different times. So, all right. So we get an appointment. So now any other tie down marketing, anything you do to just really lock it in before we're like, they're on the Zoom? Any other things you send them?
No. So if they don't book an appointment, obviously they'll keep getting dripped on, and that's your cue to start like making calls on that lead. If they book an appointment, it'll exclude them from the drip, and then it will send them a follow-up, and it'll be like, here's your reminder for your scheduled appointment on X day at X time. Calvin's going to call you from X phone number. So cool. I have like all of the stuff that's going to go in there, and then it will send them another, that happens right after they book the appointment. So it's like, boom, it's locked in. And then 10 minutes, I don't do anything more or less than 10 minutes. I'm like 10 minutes before, I'll say, hey, Grady, it's Calvin. This is your reminder for your appointment. In 10 minutes, you're going to receive a call from this number, 970-314-4037, period. And then no matter, I don't care what they say back to that, cancel and whatever, I'm calling them in 10 minutes. Yeah. And so we get to that, and then basically.
That's your in-home badass right there. That's them texting you in the morning when at 7 a.m. going, I've got a doctor's appointment today. And you show up at 3:30 and the car's in the carport. And you're like, yeah, all right, Betty. And then they act like, oh, perfect. Good to come on right in. Like we forgot they text us at 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
I love it.